All right, let's jump into our deep dive today. We're looking at Jenny Han's summer series, and specifically, It's Not Summer Without You.
Okay.
You guys gave us some really interesting excerpts from the second book, and even a little sneak peek from the first and third books to All the Boys I've Loved Before and Burn for Burn.
Yeah, it's like having these little pieces, like a puzzle,
Yeah,
trying to see
right.
how they fit together.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we want to do today. We want to uncover, what's at the heart of these stories,
Yeah.
what drives these characters, and, what events kind of shape their relationships.
Right.
So we're in for some serious teenage emotions,
Oh, yeah.
summer romance, and maybe even a few twists
Yeah.
along the way.
One of the things that kind of struck me right away was the whole summer thing.
Oh, yeah.
That it's like summer just intensifies all of the emotions. It's like this feeling that time is running out.
Right.
And everything's kind of heightened and magical.
Yeah, like summer is almost a character in itself,
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into it. Let's talk about this love triangle.
Okay.
We have Belly and Conrad and Jeremiah.
Right.
They spend every summer together at this beach house in Cousins, so,
Oh, yeah.
talk about a recipe for disaster.
And it's not just a simple love triangle, right?
Right.
Because you've chosen excerpts that highlight the fact that the story is being told from multiple perspectives.
Right.
So we're getting Belly's first-person point of view, but then we also get a chapter from Jeremiah's point of view.
Yes.
So we're seeing the same events,
right.
but through these different lenses, and that just makes it so much more complex.
Exactly. And, like, when Jeremiah realizes he's in love with Belly.
Oh, yeah.
But it's right when she's starting to get closer to Conrad.
Oh, the timing.
Talk about bad timing.
Right.
I mean...
But it's so real, right? Because that's what happens with first love. It's so intense.
Right, yeah.
It's so confusing, and it can really change, friendships that have been solid forever.
Yes, and this one summer just becomes this, like, pivotal point.
Absolutely.
For all three of them, and then you layer in this whole Susanna's illness thing.
Right.
She's battling cancer throughout the whole book.
It's so interesting how it's not always front and center, but it's always there.
Yes.
Like this undercurrent that's affecting everything.
Right.
Like when Conrad pushes Belly away after he kisses her. It's not just, teenage moodiness.
Right.
It's his fear of losing his mother.
Oh, wow.
And getting close to someone else.
Yeah.
Who could also be taken away from him.
Wow, I hadn't even thought about it that way.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not just him being a jerk, it's like a real defense mechanism.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, the excerpts show us Susanna's death and the impact of that.
Yeah.
Belly feels lost. Conrad becomes even more withdrawn and he lashes out.
Right.
And Jeremiah tries to be strong, but you can just tell he's hurting.
Oh, totally. And I think that's where Jenny Han's writing really stands out because she shows us the grieving process and all its messiness.
Yeah.
And it's not perfect. And I think every character's reaction to Susanna's death feels really authentic and relatable.
Yeah.
And it just highlights how grief can bring people together, but it can also push people apart.
Absolutely. Okay, and speaking of relatable, the house.
Oh, the house.
It's not just a setting.
No, it's so much more.
Right. It represents, their connection with Susanna.
Right, their shared past.
And just this sense of belonging.
Think about how Belly describes it.
Yeah.
Smelling like salt and sunscreen.
Yes.
And it evokes this sense of comfort.
Yeah.
And it's unchanging.
Yeah.
It's like this refuge from everything else that's going on.
Right.
It is even more powerful because you contrast that with Susanna being sick and all the uncertainty.
Right. And then when Mr. Fisher decides to sell it,
oh my gosh,
Belly is devastated.
Devastated.
I mean, it's like he's trying to erase their memories and cut off their connection to Susanna.
And it really speaks to this theme of change, and how hard it is to let go of the past.
Yeah, and the house becomes this, like,
battleground.
Yes, for all their emotions,
For all their unresolved stuff.
Yes, Conrad wants to move on.
Right.
Wants to just, like, cut it off, and Belly just wants to hold on
Desperately.
to everything that it represents.
Absolutely.
And it's just heartbreaking to see how their different ways of coping are, like, driving them apart.
Yeah, and it's not just Conrad and Belly.
Right.
Jeremiah is super affected by the house possibly being sold too.
Yes.
Because for him, it represents that stability and family that he craves.
Right.
He's got this distance from his own father.
Yes.
So he wants to save it not just for the memories,
yeah,
but for that sense of belonging,
Which he doesn't have.
which you might not have anywhere else.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you've got this conflict over the house, and it really brings out all this tension.
Right.
And all these unspoken things between them.
Right.
It's almost like the house is a metaphor for their relationships.
Wow. Yeah.
Will they survive?
Yeah.
Will they fall apart?
Okay, let's switch gears just for a second and talk about those little hints from the other books.
Okay.
In To All the Boys I've Loved, before we hear about Lara Jean, who is Belly's younger sister.
Right.
And she writes these secret love letters to every boy she's ever had a crush on.
Oh, that's interesting.
It is.
It kind of ties into,
Yeah.
unspoken feelings.
Yeah.
Like It's Not Summer without
Mm-hmm.
Belly and Lara Jean are both kind of struggling
Yeah.
to say how they really feel,
Yeah.
especially to these guys that they like.
It's like they need the safe way to like explore their feelings.
Yes.
But without being vulnerable.
Yeah, without the risk of rejection.
Right.
So they're trying to figure out love,
Uh-huh.
in these different ways.
So even though these are separate books, we're seeing these connections.
Yes, definitely.
These threads. It's like Jenny Han is creating this web
Yes.
of relationships and emotions that spans all these different books.
And it gets even more interesting when you look at that cliffhanger
Yeah.
from Burn for Burn,
Right, yeah.
where you've got these three girls, Kat, Lilia, and Mary,
Uh-huh.
and they're teaming up to get revenge on people who have wronged them.
Yeah, and it's like so much darker
Right.
than the summer vibes we get from It's Not Summer Without.
It's a little edgier, yeah.
I'm really curious to see how that ties into like the bigger picture.
Yeah, I think it really speaks to this whole thing about justice and forgiveness,
Uh-huh.
especially when you're talking about teenage relationships.
Right.
So Belly and Conrad and Jeremiah are dealing with, love and loss.
Mm-hmm.
These girls are taking action.
Yeah, they're like
Yeah, they're going after it.
taking charge.
They want to make things right.
Right.
So it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
are they all just feeling the same kind of pain?
Right.
Yeah, and is that what's driving them?
It's like Jenny Han is exploring
This whole range.
the full spectrum
The good and the bad.
of like how we react to these tough situations.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the love triangle,
Yes.
the impact of Susanna's illness and death, that house, and then these little teasers from the other books.
Right.
But now I want to look closer at Billy's relationships with Conrad and Jeremiah.
Okay.
So what can we see in these excerpts about how those dynamics play out?
Well, let's start with Conrad.
Okay.
He's the brooding, mysterious one.
Yeah.
What do we see about how Belly feels about him?
I mean, it's pretty clear that she is totally head over heels for him.
Yeah.
Like, remember that scene at the beginning of It's Not Summer Without You when he kisses her by the pool?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
That sets the stage
it does.
for everything.
Yeah, and she describes it as golden.
Right.
It's like this moment she's been waiting for forever.
Yes.
But she's also not sure if he feels the same way.
Right. There's this uncertainty.
Right, and throughout the excerpts, she's always trying to figure him out,
Absolutely.
analyze his every word and every action.
She's looking for clues.
Yes, and it's like,
Classic teenage angst.
yes,
You want someone so bad, but you just don't know
you don't know how they feel.
how they feel.
And then you add in Susanna's illness and death,
Right.
and Conrad just shuts down even more.
He builds a wall.
Yeah, and Belly just can't seem to break through.
That scene after Susanna's funeral,
Oh my gosh.
when she tries to comfort him and he just pushes her away,
Yes.
calls their relationship a huge mistake.
Heartbreaking.
I know.
It's like he can't handle.
He can't be vulnerable.
Right?
He's hurting so much.
Yeah, and it's like he's taking it out on her.
Yeah, he's pushing her away
Yeah.
to protect himself.
Right, so then we have Jeremiah, who is like the complete opposite of Conrad.
Right.
He's fun, he's carefree.
Always makes her laugh.
Yes, he brings this like lightness.
Lightness.
Yeah, to this heavy summer. So
Yeah.
of course Belly is drawn to that,
Totally.
especially when Conrad's being such a jerk.
Right, and we see Jeremiah's feelings for her get stronger
Uh-huh.
throughout all the excerpts, and then he finally realizes he's in love with her.
But of course,
Oh, the timing.
the timing,
Yeah.
it's like she's caught between these two completely different versions of love.
So true.
Conrad is this like passionate,
Almost forbidden.
Yes.
The kind that consumes you, makes you feel so alive.
but also hurts.
But it hurts.
And Jeremiah is like safe and stable.
Right.
He's like a sure thing.
The friendship, the laughter,
Yes.
always there for her.
So it's like she has to choose
Yeah.
between, following her heart
Right.
or choosing what feels safe.
And that makes her so relatable.
Yes.
She's dealing with all this first love stuff,
Uh-huh.
plus losing Susanna,
Right.
and her friendships are changing.
And she's trying to figure out who she is.
Absolutely.
Makes you wonder what would happen if she had,
Been more open to Jeremiah.
Yes,
Right?
it's like...
That's what's so great about these stories.
Yeah.
You can imagine all these different possibilities.
Yeah.
But let's not forget about the house.
Oh, wow.
Because it plays such a big part in how they relate to each other.
Right. It's not just a place. It's like the heart of their history.
Yes.
All those memories
All the summers.
of Susanna and just those carefree days.
Before everything changed.
Yes. And then you have that scene where that woman shows up
Oh, God.
saying she's Mr. Fisher's girlfriend.
Yeah, and expecting the house to be empty.
Right. Like so awkward.
So awkward.
It's like reality is intruding
It is.
on this place that always felt safe and unchanging.
Sure.
Like life is moving on.
Yeah, whether they're ready or not.
And then Conrad makes Belly promise to keep it a secret from Jeremiah.
Oh, that's so interesting.
It is?
It shows that Conrad wants to protect Jeremiah
Yeah.
from knowing that his dad has moved on.
Right.
But it's also creating all these secrets and lies.
Right. And just complicating everything even more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to those hints from the other books.
Okay.
Because Laura Jean's secret love letters are really interesting when you think about Belly.
Right.
Because they're both afraid to be vulnerable.
Yes.
Laura Jean writes these letters, but she's never going to send them.
Right.
Belly is obsessed with Conrad, but terrified to actually tell him how she feels.
Yes.
But they're also dealing with love in such different ways.
Right.
Laura Jean is writing it all down. It's safe.
Right.
Belly's just going for it with Conrad.
Yes. Even if it means getting hurt.
Even if it means getting hurt.
And then there's that revenge plot in Burn for Burn.
Oh, yeah. Totally different.
It's so different.
Right.
It makes you wonder if they all just want the same thing.
Yeah.
Like to make things right.
Right, when you feel like you've been wronged.
Yeah.
But then you have to think about,
Yeah.
what are the consequences of getting revenge?
Right. Does it actually help or does it just make things worse?
Yeah.
It seems like Jenny Han is showing us,
The whole picture.
yes, of how complicated relationships can be.
All the ups and downs.
Okay, so we've talked about the love triangle,
Mm-hmm.
Susanna's illness and death, the house.
The house.
And these little hints from the other books.
Yeah.
But there's one more thing I want to talk about, and that's Belly's own journey.
Oh, yeah.
Of figuring out who she is.
Right.
What do we see in these excerpts about that?
Well, she's really struggling with her identity. Like, who is she?
Yeah, who is she apart from these guys?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like she's trying on different versions of herself. Different styles, different behaviors.
Right, like when she's with Conrad, she's more girly.
Yeah, she wants to impress him.
Right, and with Jeremiah, she's more relaxed.
More tomboyish.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not just about how she looks.
Right.
It's what she believes in, what she wants to do with her life. Like when she hangs out with Taylor.
Yes.
She gets into that whole party scene.
Yes.
But it doesn't really feel like her.
It doesn't feel genuine.
No.
Yeah.
And then she has those moments with Susanna where she sees a different way to live.
Right, like a life full of creativity and warmth.
And appreciating the simple things.
Yes.
It's like Susanna represents what Belly could be. A woman who followed her passions.
Yes.
And lived life on her own terms.
And maybe Susanna's death isn't just something sad.
Right.
But it's like this push for Belly.
Yeah, to find her own path.
To figure out what she wants.
Exactly.
Yeah, and her relationship with her own mom is kind of a mess.
Yeah.
It's like she's looking for that connection in all the wrong places.
That's so true. She wants to be loved and accepted.
Yeah.
Not just by the guys.
Right.
But by her mom, too.
Yes.
And that just adds another layer to her character.
It's like all these things. The love triangle, Susanna's death, the house and Belly trying to figure herself out. It's all connected.
It's all woven together.
Yes.
And that's what Jenny Han does so well. She gets those teenage emotions.
Yeah.
The ups and downs.
It's confusion.
The confusion, the excitement.
A heartbreak.
Heartbreak.
The hope. It all feels so real.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot in this deep dive.
We have.
We've looked at the love triangle, the impact of Susanna's illness and death,
Right.
the house, the hints from the other books, and Belly's own journey.
Her journey of self-discovery.
Yes, and it's amazing how Jenny Han takes all these different things
Right.
and makes them into this, like,
This beautiful portrait.
yes, of what it's like to be a teenager.
Yes.
And her characters feel so real.
They do.
And their struggles feel like things we've all gone through.
Exactly.
And you just keep thinking about them.
Yes.
Long after you finish the book.
You've given us so much to think about.
What stands out to you as the most interesting part of all of this?
For me, it's how Jenny Han takes summer, which we usually think of as all fun and carefree,
Right.
and turns it into this time of intense emotional growth.
Mm-hmm.
It can be painful, it can be exciting, but it always changes you.
It's like those long summer days create the perfect setting
Absolutely.
for these characters to face their deepest fears and desires.
The stakes are higher, the emotions are bigger,
Right.
and it feels like everything could change when summer's over.
Yeah, and that feeling of change is huge for Belly.
Right.
Remember that scene at the end of It's Not Summer Without You,
Oh, yeah.
where she's driving home with Jeremiah and holding his hand?
Yes.
It felt like she was finally letting go of Conrad and opening herself up to something new.
It's a really powerful moment
Yes.
because she's choosing to trust Jeremiah,
Right.
who has always been there for her.
Even when she wasn't interested.
Exactly.
But it also makes you think about what will happen next.
Right.
Because those little hints from the other books, like Laura Jean's love letters, show us that sometimes we want what we want.
Yeah, even if it doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
And that revenge plot in Burn for Burn
Right.
reminds us that even good choices can have bad consequences.
Wow.
It's like Jenny Han is saying that life is unpredictable. There are no easy answers when it comes to love or loss or finding your place.
So what should our listeners be thinking about?
Pay attention to the little things.
Okay.
Notice how each character changes, how their relationships grow,
Yeah.
and how their experiences shape who they become.
Yeah, and don't be afraid of the messiness.
Exactly.
These books remind us that being a teenager is about feeling everything.
Yes.
Figuring things out as you go. And sometimes the best journeys are the ones that take us through both good times and bad.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
And that's what makes Jenny Han's book so great.
Yeah.
She takes us back to those teenage years.
Right.
And reminds us that even when things are chaotic, there's still magic in growing up.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Jenny Han's summer series.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you've enjoyed exploring these characters and themes.
Yes.
And we hope you keep thinking about their stories
Yeah.
long after this is over.
Happy reading, everyone. Yeah, she describes it as golden,
Right?
like a moment she's been waiting for.
Forever, yes.
Yeah, but then there's also that.
That doubt.
Yeah, like, does he feel the same way?
Right, and she's always trying to figure him out.
Yeah, analyze every little thing,
Throughout these excerpts.
every word, every look.
Yes, exactly.
Classic teenage angst.
Ugh, so relatable.
Oh, totally.
You want him so bad, but you have no idea.
You're just clueless.
Yes, and then with Susanna's illness and death,
Right, it gets even worse.
Conrad just shuts down completely.
He puts up that wall.
And Belly just can't.
Break through.
That scene after the funeral,
Oh, gosh, I know.
when she tries to comfort him,
Uh-huh.
and he's like, "Get away from me. This is all a mistake."
A huge mistake.
Ugh. My heart breaks for her.
It's like he just can't handle it.
He can't be vulnerable.
He can't be vulnerable, and he pushes her away.
Yeah, he's pushing her away to protect himself.
So then we have Jeremiah,
Right, the total opposite.
who's just so different from Conrad.
Polar opposites.
He's fun. He's light.
Carefree, always making her laugh.
Yes. He brings this, like, lightness
That lightness to a really heavy situation.
to the heaviness of that summer.
It's no wonder she's drawn to him.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Especially when Conrad is being...
Such a jerk.
Right. And then we see Jeremiah's feelings for Belly
They get stronger.
develop throughout all the excerpts.
Then he realizes he loves her.
And he says it.
But of course,
The timing.
the absolute worst timing.
Ugh. I know she's literally caught between
These two different ideas of love. Conrad is like
that passionate
the forbidden love that
Yes.
consumes you.
that makes you feel alive but also hurts.
But yeah, it comes with pain. And then Jeremiah is like the safe,
The stable love.
the friendship, the laughter,
Comfort.
always there for you.
Always.
So it's like she has to make this choice.
Yeah. Does she follow her heart?
Or does she choose what feels safe?
And that makes her such a great character.
Such a relatable character.
Because she's dealing with all of this first love stuff and losing Susanna.
Right.
And her friendships are all changing.
And she's trying to figure out who she is?
Absolutely. So much going on.
It makes you think, what if she had...
What if she'd given Jeremiah a chance?
Yes, exactly what would have happened.
We'll never know.
I know, it's the beauty of these stories.
Yeah, you can imagine all the possibilities.
But let's not forget about that house.
Oh, that house.
It plays such a huge role in how they all
in the relationship.
relate to each other. Yes, it's not just a setting.
It's like this symbol of their past.
All of those memories.
Of Susanna and those perfect summers.
Before everything changed.
Before the world got complicated.
Right, and then that scene where woman shows up.
Oh my gosh, I cringed.
Saying she's Mr. Fisher's girlfriend.
Yeah, and expecting the house to be empty.
Like, so awkward.
The worst.
It's like reality just smacked them in the face.
It did, and it shows that life is moving on.
Yeah.
Whether they're ready or not.
And then Conrad makes Belly promise not to tell Jeremiah.
I know.
It shows that he wants to protect him.
Right.
From that pain of knowing his dad has moved on.
But it's also creating more secrets.
Yeah, more lies.
And just making everything more complicated.
Okay, let's go back to those hints from the other books for a minute.
Okay.
Because Lara Jean's love letters, they're really interesting when you think about Belly.
Yes.
Because they're both afraid to be vulnerable.
Yes.
Lara Jean writes these letters, but she's never going to send them.
Right.
And Belly is obsessed with Conrad, but she won't tell him how she feels.
So they're both hiding.
They are, but in such different ways.
Right.
Lara Jean finds a safe way to express herself.
Belly just throws herself at Conrad.
And risks getting hurt.
Exactly. And then you have that revenge plot in Burn for Burn.
Which is so different.
It's like a different universe.
Makes you think, are they all just looking for the same thing?
Yeah.
Like, to fix what's broken?
To make things right?
When someone hurts them?
But it makes you wonder, you know...
Does revenge really work?
Does it actually make things better?
Or does it just cause more pain?
It seems like Jenny Han wants us to think about that.
About all the different ways we react.
To getting hurt.
Okay, so we've covered the love triangle.
Uh-huh.
Susanna's illness and death.
Right.
The house.
That house.
And the hints from the other books.
Yes.
But now let's dive into Belly's own journey.
Her coming-of-age story.
Yes. What do we see about that in these excerpts?
Yeah, she's trying to figure out who she is.
Yeah.
You know, like, who is Belly apart from these guys?
Right, and it's like she's trying on all these different versions of herself.
Exactly. Different styles, different behaviors.
Like when she's with Conrad, she's like this girly girl trying to impress him.
And trying to be what he wants.
Right, and then with Jeremiah...
It's more relaxed.
Yeah, she can be herself.
More tomboyish, yeah.
But it's not just about how she looks.
No, it's deeper than that.
Right.
It's about her values.
Yeah.
You know, what she wants out of life.
Yeah, like when she hangs out with Taylor.
Oh, yeah.
And she gets caught up in that whole party scene.
It just seems so superficial.
Oh, right. It doesn't feel authentic.
Not really her.
And then there are those moments with Susanna. Where she sees this whole other way of living.
A life that's full of meaning.
Yeah, like creativity and warmth.
And just appreciating the little things.
It's like Susanna shows her what she could be.
Yeah, a woman who followed her own path.
Right, lived life on her own terms.
Maybe Susanna's death isn't just a tragedy.
Right.
It's like a wake-up call for Belly.
Yeah, to figure out who she is and what she wants.
To find her own way.
And her relationship with her own mom is so messed up. You know, it's like she's trying to find that connection.
That love and acceptance.
Yes, but in all the wrong places.
She's looking for it from these guys. But she needs it from her mom, too.
And that just adds another layer to her character.
Absolutely. It makes her even more real.
So we have the love triangle.
Yeah.
We have Susanna's death in the house. And Belly's own journey of self-discovery.
It's all intertwined.
Yes, and Jenny Han just weaves it all together.
She captures those teenage emotions so perfectly.
Yeah, the highs and the lows.
The confusion, the excitement.
The heartbreak, the hope.
It's all there.
And it feels so real.
So authentic.
Okay, so we've covered a lot in this deep dive.
We have.
We talked about the love triangle.
Right.
The impact of Susanna's illness and death. The symbolism of the house.
That house.
Those little hints from the other books.
Yes.
And Belly's journey of figuring out who she is.
Her coming-of-age story.
It's amazing how Jenny Han takes all these different pieces.
I know, right?
And creates this picture of what it's like to be a teenager.
It's so relatable.
Her characters feel like people we know.
They do.
And their struggles are so familiar.
Like we've been there.
And their stories stay with you.
Long after you finish the book.
So what's the most interesting part of all of this for you?
You know, for me, it's how Jenny Han takes summer.
Uh-huh.
which we usually think of as this carefree time.
Yeah, lazy days at the beach.
Exactly. And she turns it into this period of intense emotional growth.
Right.
It can be painful. It can be exciting.
But it always changes you.
Always.
It's like those long summer days create the perfect setting
Yeah, they do.
for these characters to face their fears and their desire.
The stakes are higher. Everything feels more intense.
And there's this sense that everything could change when summer ends.
Like it's now or never.
And that sense of change is so important for Belly.
It is.
Remember that scene at the end of It's Not Summer Without You?
Oh, yeah.
When she's driving home with Jeremiah?
Holding his hand.
Yes, it felt like a turning point for her.
A new beginning.
Yeah, like she was finally letting go of Conrad.
And opening herself up to something new.
To Jeremiah.
It's a really brave moment for her.
It is, because she's choosing to trust him.
Yeah.
Even though she hasn't always been sure about him.
But he's always been there for her.
Always.
Consistent and supportive.
But it also makes you wonder what will happen next.
Right, because those little hints from the other books.
Yeah, like Lara Jean's love letters.
They remind us that sometimes we want what we want.
Even if it doesn't make sense.
Even if it's not the best choice.
And that revenge plot in Burn for Burn.
Yeah.
It shows us that even good choices can have bad consequences.
It's like Jenny Han is saying that life is messy.
Unpredictable.
And there are no easy answers.
So what should our listeners be thinking about as they read these books?
I think the key is to pay attention to the details.
Okay.
Notice how each character changes.
How they grow.
Yeah, and how their relationships evolve.
And how their experiences shape who they become.
Exactly.
And don't be afraid to embrace the messiness.
Yeah.
Because these books remind us that being a teenager is all about feeling everything.
The good, the bad, the confusing.
And figuring things out as you go.
And sometimes the most meaningful journeys are the ones that take us through both sunshine and storms.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Thanks.
And that's what makes Jenny Han's books so special.
They really are.
They take us back to those teenage years.
Yeah.
And remind us that even amidst the chaos, there's magic in growing up.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Jenny Han's summer series.
It's been fun.
We hope you've enjoyed exploring these characters and themes,
Yeah.
and we hope you keep thinking about their stories.
Keep reading.
Long after this episode is over.
Happy reading, everyone.